Hello, this is the Lord's Legion and welcome to another countdown. And in this video we're going to be counting down the 10 potential Avengers 4 titles. Now the reason why I want to make this video is because I want to have a little fun and try and speculate on what the title could very well be. And yes, I am aware that it got somewhat leaked, or at the very least a rough title, so I feel like the title for Avengers 4 could change into something completely different. Admittedly, a few of these titles that I've chosen are a little outlandish and probably unlikely, but even still I wanted to include them anyway because I just want to have a little fun. And just so we're clear that this is in no particular order, so without further ado, let's begin with the countdown. Now let's get the obvious one out of the way. The first one on my list is of course Avengers Infinity Gauntlet. Now the reason why I'm introducing the Infinity Gauntlet as my first title is purely because it got leaked by Gamora herself during a recent interview like a day ago. And as of right now, I'm going to assume that Avengers Infinity Gauntlet is going to be the rough title for Avengers 4. However, it could change or it may not. And even with that being said, the Infinity Gauntlet as a title does make quite a lot of sense. Because although Infinity War and Infinity Gauntlet are two completely different films, they are still connected with one another and complete the entire storyline. And from what I've heard about Avengers Infinity War, that's going to be more Earth-based and is a continuation to Civil War if anything else. While Infinity War will also delve into the character of Thanos as well as his quest for the Infinity Stones. But I think by the time Thanos does get all the Infinity Stones, everything will go completely crazy in time for Avengers 4. Which is why I think Avengers Infinity Gauntlet is a very good title. Now the next title that I have is of course Avengers Disassembled. And like how Age of Ultron had nothing to do with the storyline outside of Ultron being present in the film, I feel like the Avengers 4 will bring the idea of the original team being dismantled piece by piece, whether they all die, run away, or end up retiring. Now in the original Avengers Disassembled storyline, the Scarlet Witch goes completely crazy and decides to dismantle the Avengers piece by piece. However, I feel like in Avengers 4 they might borrow that similar concept, but instead of using Scarlet Witch as the villain, they're going to use it for Thanos. And I feel like the title is meant to be in a similar vein to The Empire Strikes Back, in the sense of the film being completely hopeless as the Avengers are now disassembled. Only for the newer heroes like Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, Spider-Man and all the others to eventually step up and become the new Avengers. And speaking of which, the next title I have is either the New Avengers or the Mighty Avengers. Now what if after the events of Infinity War, Thanos gets the Infinity Gauntlet, gets all the Infinity Stones, and then clicks his fingers and wipes out half of the universe, wiping out the original Avengers as we know it. And then in Avengers 4, or in this case the Mighty Avengers or the New Avengers, whatever you prefer, it will revolve around how hopeless Earth really is because the core Avengers team are gone. Like there's no Iron Man, there's no Captain America, there's no Thor, and there's no Hulk. And as everything becomes hopeless, we get to see the newer heroes rise up like Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, Spider-Man and Ant-Man and a whole bunch of others. And then it's that big moment where we get to see the new heroes rise up and become the new Avengers. And they will stop at absolutely nothing until they are able to beat Thanos. Now this is one of the more obscure picks that I have, and this is of course Avengers Kang Dynasty. Now don't give me the Fox owns Kang bullshit, because as we already know, Fox also has the rights to Ego. And as evident in Guardians Volume 2, they are allowing Marvel Studios to lend the character of Ego. And if Marvel really wants to have Kang, then they could do a deal with Fox and then they could pull it off. But why I specifically pick Kang is the fact that I could imagine everything being completely hopeless up until they bring some of the time traveling elements, thus bringing on the villain Kang. Now Kang in the comics is more of an anti-hero who will do everything just for his own needs. And Kang believes that he should take over the 21st century so that he could save his own timeline. And so I could imagine Kang teaming up with the Avengers to stop Thanos, because Thanos is the one who is destroying the world. Then I could imagine in future installments of the MCU, Kang will reveal his true colours and in essence become a new big bad for the MCU down the road. Now again, this is probably unlikely, but even still I think this is an interesting idea. Now admittedly, this next title is very basic, but at the same time I feel like this is rather powerful. And this is of course Avengers, the Heroic Age. We already know that in the current MCU, the heroes are actually scattered, as Tony Stark is now with the Accords, while Captain America is a fugitive, and Thor and Hulk are completely missing. And I could imagine in Avengers Infinity War, the cracks will further be exploited by Thanos. So what I can imagine is by in Avengers 4, we get to see all the heroes reunite and put all their differences to one side in order to stop the big foe. And as you all know, the MCU has been leading up to this end goal, which is of course Thanos. Not only that though, I could imagine the newer heroes be a staple towards the title, because we have this new heroic age. All these new heroes like Captain Marvel and Black Panther and Spider-Man and Ant-Man and Doctor Strange and all the rest of these characters step up and become the new Avengers, thus leading up to the heroic age. Now the next title is rather interesting, as I have Avengers Annihilation. Now I'm not 100% sure on who owns the rights to Annihilus, but I do have a feeling that both Marvel and Fox co-own the character. And even when you take that away, I still feel like Annihilus would make a very interesting villain for Avengers 4. Because in the comics, Annihilus is the sole reason as to why the modern incarnation of the Guardians of the Galaxy have ever assembled in the first place. And even with that being said, Annihilus had several run-ins with the Avengers over the years as well, and is even on the same level as Thanos in terms of power level. Hell, even in the Annihilation storyline, both Annihilus and Thanos had big parts within that storyline. I could imagine Marvel Studios doing something very interesting and do a rough incarnation of the same storyline, as well as linking it up with the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, which is going to be for Infinity War. Now again, this one is a little more unlikely, but at the same time, I don't think it's that far off. Now the next title I have is a little more basic, and this is of course Avengers Thanos Triumphant. Now in the comics, Thanos is one of the most successful villains in the Marvel Universe, and he is also one of the very few characters who could fight against almost anyone in the Marvel Universe. However, Thanos' greatest downfall is of course his ego, as well as his infatuation with Mistress Death, or in this case, Hela, if this is true. So I could imagine that in Avengers Infinity War, Thanos will wipe the floor with anyone who stands in his way. And the reason why it's called Thanos Triumphant is the fact that he is one of the most victorious villains in the Marvel Universe, and that whatever scheme Thanos has in place, he will almost certainly be victorious up until some circumstances that eventually trips him over. Admittedly, this is probably the weakest title I have on this list, but even with that being said, it wouldn't surprise me if they end up using this title. Now the next title I have is of course Avengers Infinity Watch. Again, think back to Infinity and Infinity War, these two titles could go hand in hand. And yes, it's true that Adam Warlock is not going to be in Infinity War. Nobody didn't say anything about Adam Warlock not going to make it into Avengers 4. Or hell, maybe it's not even Adam Warlock, but rather his evil counterpart, Magus. And maybe Magus is the one who's trying to get the Infinity Gauntlet from Thanos. Or maybe in Avengers 4, Thanos is trying to reach to Adam Warlock's cocoon, only for Adam Warlock to reawaken and eventually take on Thanos by himself. And maybe by the end, Adam Warlock gets all of the Infinity Stones and ended up starting the Infinity Watch. That way he could prevent other villains from ever reaching to the Infinity Gauntlet. And I think that would be a very badass introduction to Adam Warlock's character. Now we get to the least likely title out of the lot, which is of course Avengers, the Devourer of Worlds. And as you could imagine, this title revolves around Galactus. And yes, Fox owns the rights to this character, but again, who's not to say that they could do a deal with Fox and lend Galactus specifically for Avengers 4. And let's be honest, there's not a single villain that you could go up after Thanos in terms of power level. And not only that though, Galactus is one of the biggest mainstays in the Marvel Universe, pun intended. And Galactus could in theory take on anyone and everyone in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And yes, I know that this one is one big ass wishful thinking on my part, but come on, who wouldn't want to see Galactus taking on the Avengers? And I know this is the least likely out of all of them, but even still, I just couldn't resist. And deep down, I'm pretty sure that every single one of you would want to see Galactus go up against the Avengers. And saving my personal favourite for last, we have Avengers Secret Wars. Now, everyone is aware that Avengers 4 is going to be completely insane in terms of visuals as well as what's going to go down. So like how Marvel tends to shake things up a bit, instead of having the Beyonder as the villain, they could just use Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet and pretty much warp reality and create Battleworld. Only for the hopeless heroes to go around Battleworld and face off some of their deepest demons as well as some of their greatest villains that have been resurrected by Thanos and his gauntlet. And by the end of Avengers 4, have all the heroes go up against Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet and just have it be a complete all-round battle royale. And out of all the titles, I feel like Secret Wars might be one of the closest ones we are going to get. So what do you think is going to be the title for Avengers 4? Comment below and share some thoughts. And as always, thank you guys for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. Take care and have a good one.